Up by Diana Hendry and looked down but looking up at a blackbird dancing on a chimney pot, at a willow tree waving its arms at me, at a cloud drifting by with a dream on top. Be sure to look up. There's a lot to see. I'm locked down but looking out. At the garden bluebells blowing and belling, at a fern unfurling against the wall, at spring. The word nature is spelling. Be sure to look out and welcome it all. I'm locked down but tuning in at a world that's suddenly quiet and slow. But the space in my mind is opening wide for all my thoughts and dreams to grow until ready to plant in the outside world. I'm locked down but looking up at the evening stars and the moon above, and at a world that's still full of hope and love.
Rory's Lockdown Loo Roll Diary by Justin Davies. My class are keeping life on lockdown diaries for a month. I might be wrong. I won't be. But I'm guessing my family will live with lockdown the same way they live with everything else. Disastrously. Week before lockdown. Status. Frustrated. We're rationing the toilet roll and lockdown hasn't even started. Why? Well, because Dad went panic buying like everyone else. But instead of coming home with mountains of loo roll and enough spaghetti to fill a wheelie bin, he bought 3 bottles of wok oil and a multi-pack of kitty treats. We don't even own a wok. Or a cat. Now there's no loo roll for 100 miles, so I spent the afternoon peeling apart the triple layers of soft cotton weave comfort of our last few loo rolls into separate layers of practically see-through paper. Nobody's thanked me for this yet. They will, dear diary, they will. News update. Dad's moved Gran in before lockdown starts. Disaster now guaranteed. Lockdown, week 2. Status. Embarrassed. 23 Pineview Crescent now has an OTRM. Official toilet roll monitor. This is how it happened. Mum kicked Gran out of the kitchen after she mistook a shepherd's pie in the freezer for rhubarb crumble. Shepherd's pie and custard are not a combination I ever want to try again. Mum told Gran to make herself useful anywhere but the kitchen. So now Gran sits all day outside the bathroom at a picnic table with some toilet roll and a chart. She only let me take 2 sheets in this morning. But then she passed an extra piece under the door, shouting, "That sounds like a 3-sheet poo, Rory." If she does this with Mum, there will be trouble. Lockdown, week 3. Status. Desperate. The last roll has disappeared. Chief suspect, Cedric the Invincible. My sister Jess denies all knowledge, but her hamster once shredded my entire Harry Potter collection, so the magic wand of suspicion points firmly to his cage. I now have no choice but to conduct a toilet roll substitute experiment. This I do for desperate people everywhere. Suggested experimental toilet roll alternatives so far. Newspaper. Leaves from the rubber plant. Pages from our giant dictionary. Lasagna sheets. Cooked, obvs. I said I might try the dictionary first, which Dad said was anarchic. I looked anarchy up in the dictionary, but most of the A's have been ripped out. So I think someone else has already started their own experiment. Gran told us that the Romans used a communal sponge on a stick to wipe their bums while sitting at their communal toilets, which is wrong on every level. News update. Mum has put the kitchen sponges in a padlocked box. Lockdown, week 4. Status, relieved. The shops have loo roll. Gran immediately resigned as OTRM and is now hosting daily lockdown in Lycra stretcher-size sessions in the middle of Pineview Crescent. Even Dad's joining in, which, as Mum says, is finally giving everyone something to smile about.
I'm Elizabeth Ezra. I'm the author of Ruby McCracken, Tragic Without Magic. And today I'm going to read A Witch's Guide to Staying at Home. If you're a young witch, you may not have experienced a pandemic before. In the Great Locust Plague of 638, we had to stay inside for 149 and a half years or risk losing our ability to fly. In the gigantic sneezing fit of the 11th century, we were forced to wear earmuffs and we could only leave our lair to visit the witch doctor. Now we face new challenges, but to help make the most of your time in lockdown, we've prepared these handy tips for stay-at-home witches. Number 1. Instead of seeing your friends in person, you'll have to have broom Zoom meetings for your coven. Maybe you can start a book or film club where you talk about how unrealistic the depictions of so-called witches are. Nothing like real witches. Number 2. When you start your broom Zoom meetings, don't forget to use the universal sign of the witch so your mates will know it's really you. Put your index fingers and thumbs together above your head to make a triangle while making a hissing sound, like this. Number 3. If the shops run out of Eye of Newt or Yak's blood, just make your own magical snacks and potions. Who needs fairy cakes when you can have witch cakes? Use green icing to match our lovely skin color and stick a triangle-shaped tortilla chip on top for a hat. Make witch's brew by adding a pinch of chili powder to hot chocolate. This will definitely give you dragon breath. Number 4. Put together a book of spells and incantations that you can recite while you're disinfecting surfaces for the 11 millionth time. For example, here's one to turn your enemy's toenails a more interesting shade. If you encounter someone mean, this will turn their toenails green. And here's a spell guaranteed, terms and conditions apply, to make someone burp uncontrollably. Judder, quiver, quake, and squelch. Now they can't suppress a belch. Number 5. You may be limited to 1 flight a day outdoors, but after you land, you can stick out your broomstick in front of you to remind people to stay at least 2 meters away. And number 6. Make up a secret code that only witches can read by replacing every second letter with a W, so that hello becomes ho-ha-re-ho, and witch becomes witch-witch. You can also create a whole new spoken language by inserting the sound ab before every vowel in a word. So, for example, run becomes rabun, hello becomes habalabo, and Abigail becomes abababagabel. You can try this with other sounds too, like ip or ub, or just about anything. If non-witch members of your family ask about your secret language, you can just shake your head sadly and say, "It's a witch thing. You wouldn't understand." But don't forget the most important advice of all. Wash your wands and don't touch the wart on your nose. This has been a message from the Witch Advisory Board.
Hello, I'm Alan McClure, and I'm going to read my poem. My name is Billy Baxter. My name is Billy Baxter. Will you spare a thought for me? I'm sitting doing nothing here in classroom 7B. You're thinking, Bill, you're havering. The schools are a shut down. For you, maybe. I would agree, but nae this lucky loon. I ken about your troubles, how this isolation's lame, the battle for the broadband when your mither works fae hame. At least you're staying for your bide. For me, it's 10 times worse, 'cause mammy is the Janny, and my father is a nurse. They say my dad's a hero, and I wouldna say they're wrang. They're acting like it's news, but me, I've kent it a lang. He gets a clap on Thursday nicht, and though that's pretty cool, fae 93, it's only me that has to ging to school. You see, the school is open, fit they cry a council hub. For bairns of frontline workers, it's an awfu' lonely club. So mammy has to open up in case there's mair to come, but normally there's naebody, just me sat on my bum. You'd think it might be cool, an empty school could be a laugh. Well aye, for half a minute, then the novelty wears off. I'm even here at weekends, it's a national disgrace, and dinna get me started on Easter holidays. I'm getting texts fae Tony, getting Snapchat fae Simone, and Connor, Kate and Corey, well they're never off the phone. But here, 12 metres distant, for to keep us safe and well, there's Miss McGee, as bored as me, just waiting for the bell. We'll try to keep it busy, hae a workout wi' Joe Wicks, then head out to the playground, drink some juice and share a Twix, but back into the classroom for the minutes flow like glue, and checking Teams on Microsoft for anything to do. I suppose my mind can wander when I'm here all by myself. I've had a look at every book that's sitting on the shelf. I'm getting braw at doodling, my writing's getting neater, and me and Miss play countdown and I nearly I was beat her. I'm really no complaining. If my spirits need a lift, I can thank my lucky stars it's no a 15-hour shift. I'll have to do my bit, I canna let it brat my heart. We'll get through this together just by staying far apart. But I miss my buddies, wish them here I must confess, although they have to stay at hame to help the NHS. So bide awa, but spare a thought for this unlucky fool, that only loon fa's lock it doon inside the primary school.
Hi, I'm Barbara Henderson. I'm the author of The Lockdown Haircut. I crouch in the corner, shaking. Mum takes a step towards me. The snippy, shiny thing is in her hand. Now come on, it's not that bad, she says in that soothing voice that spells trouble. And you need a haircut, no doubt about that. All you need to do is stay still. I'm just going to... Speed is my only hope. I scramble up and try to wriggle past her and out into the garden, but she is having none of it. She throws out an arm, blocking my way. Whoa! Nothing soothing about her voice now. She glares at me. All right, have it your way. Hey, Ella, give me a hand for a minute. Just hold him by the shoulders. Here. Mum rolls up her sleeves, but I can see Ella rolling her eyes instead. What is there to say? I just whimper in my distress and snap from time to time while Mum and Ella shuffle after me through an ever-growing ocean of hair. Mine. Eventually, I'm too tired to fight back against the snippy shiny thing or the buzzy scratchy thing Mum plugs into the wall and uses on the back of my neck and around my ears. Nobody speaks very much now, but I can feel their frustration and smell their sweat. I'm not good with knowing the time, but it seems to take forever. Isn't it time for dinner? I give Ella the look. Normally Ella and I understand each other without words, but today she's awfully slow on the uptake. Finally she gets it. Mum, isn't that enough? Mum looks me up and down. It's not great. Wait. She trims off the hair above my eyes and wow, I can see again. I take in the whole kitchen, which doesn't seem quite as frightening anymore. Ella gives me one of her gentle hugs, the kind I like best, and ruffles the top of my head. See, that wasn't so bad, was it? Don't you feel so much better without all the tuggies? And you were brave, weren't you? Hardly made a sound, did he, Mum? Mum says, pfft, and reaches for the broom, which is scarier than the snippy and the buzzy things put together. I am out of here. Out in the garden, I can breathe again. Ella throws me a tennis ball and I chase it, wagging my tail, until I hear Mum's voice once more. Ella, get in here. You're next, remember?
The Worst Birthday Ever by Maisie Chan. Today Ivy was supposed to have a party, but the stupid virus ruined that. She knew it was serious and there was nothing for it but to stay at home and sulk. No party, no presents, no laser tag. No giggles with her mates or sipping on blue and red slushies and having breadfruits. It was officially going to be the worst birthday ever. Ivy felt like crying. She would stay in bed all day and hide under her duvet until it was over. A knock on the door made her jump. She knew it was Liam. He banged so hard she thought his fist would come through. "I've got something for you. Go away, I'm not in the mood," she shouted. "Come on, Ivy, can I come in?" Liam was the last person she wanted to see. Her oafish big brother always borrowed her special pencils, the ones that smelled like cola, and hugged the TV playing Xbox. He probably wanted to tease her. "We're here too," Dad added, giving a lighter knock. "All right then, come in," she replied. She didn't expect that they would have gotten her anything good. The shops were all closed and Mum had lost her cleaning job. The door opened wide and Liam stood there with a tray piled high of stacks of pancakes covered in chocolate and marshmallows. The wonderfully sweet smell wafted up Ivy's nostrils. An unlit candle was stuck in the middle. He walked over to the side of the bed. Mum and Dad appeared behind him. Dad held up a banner. "Happy birthday to Ivy, 11 today." He used papers ripped from the Chinese supermarket calendar and stuck them to a big piece of wallpaper. "I made it myself," said Dad, grinning. Mum came up behind her holding a laptop. There were loads of tiny boxes all over the screen. Ivy couldn't see clearly, so she put on her glasses. She blinked. The boxes were filled with faces of her classmates. Her best friends Nathan and Lisa were dressed up as Pokemon. They hadn't forgotten her. Liam put down the pancakes on Ivy's bedside table. Dad lit the candle. Mum placed the laptop on the bed. "Happy birthday to you," everyone chorused, holding up birthday posters. Ivy blew out the candle. A golf ball-sized lump arose in her throat. She hadn't been forgotten after all. Mum pulled out a red envelope. "There's money inside for you, Ivy," Mum said. "You didn't need to, Mum," said Ivy. "We all left presents outside your front door on our daily walks," said Nathan from his virtual box. "Liam sorted it all out for you," said Lisa. "It was Liam's idea?" Ivy asked, looking at her big brother. His face went the shade of plum sauce. Ivy moved the plate of pancakes to one side and gave Liam a hug. "Thanks," said Ivy. "No bother," he replied. Ivy smiled. "Thanks, everyone. You're all amazing."
Hi, my name's Kerry Fleming, and this is my poem, What Day Is It Today? The first week that we stayed at home, I woke up nice and early and I asked my mum, "What day is it today?" "It's Monday," Mum said, laughing, "and it's almost 7:30, so come on, get up, it's not a holiday." My mum had made a schedule for our fancy new home school, and at first I thought, yeah, this will be exciting. An hour for maths, some art and crafts, then outside for PE, then we'd end the day with some creative writing. By week 2 of the lockdown, I woke up feeling sleepy, and I asked my mum, "What day is it today?" Mum sighed and said, "It's Tuesday and it's nearly 8 o'clock, so get up because I've got loads to do today." She seemed a wee bit grumpy, so I didn't want to argue, but I wasn't in the mood for long division. But Mum said that I had to do my schoolwork every day and no way could I just watch the television. By the 3rd week of the lockdown, things were starting to feel strange and I really missed my class and my best friend. When I asked my mum what day it was, she simply muttered Wednesday. I really wish this awful mess would end. The 4th week of the quarantine, I woke up feeling weepy and I sniffled, "Mum, what day is it today?" "It's Thursday and it's raining and it's after 9 o'clock, so get up," she yelled, and turned and walked away. I'd had enough. I shouted, "No, I don't want to get dressed. What's the point if I'm not going out today? I'm sick of doing Sundog and there's nobody on Glow. Can I not just keep my jammies on and play? That's when Mum got cross and said, you can't miss out on school. The other mums will all tell the same story. But she must have seen the teardrop as it squeezed out of my eye, because she held me tight and told me she was sorry. We sat and talked for ages as the rain poured down outside, and I said I wish this thing would go away. She cuddled me for ages, gave me tissues for my tears, then she said, I think we're going to be okay. The next day, when I woke up, I felt a wee bit better, so I asked my mum, what day is it today? She snuggled in and said it's either Thursday or it's Friday, but it doesn't really matter either way. Today could be a day for baking scones or bread or cakes, or a day to tend the flowers and the plants. It could be a day for building dens, for painting or for drawing. We could dance around the garden in our pants. So every day we try to stay as happy as we can, and we listen when each other needs a moan. And our schedule's out the window, because we know it's more important to stay happy, to stay safe, and stay at home.
Hello, it's Chase Stratty here. Hi. And I'm here with a special Wigton Book Festival treat just for you. I'm going to read my contribution to the fabulous Stay at Home anthology, which was created during lockdown to keep everyone entertained while we were all locked away in our houses. So I hope you enjoy it and hope you enjoy the fabulous Wigton Book Festival event. Now my story is called I Am So Not Bored, and it's written in the form of a homework essay by a little boy called Xander Jankalowski. So here it is. My Weekend, homework essay by Xander Jankalowski, Primary 6B. So Adam L said on text on Sunday that he's so bored in lockdown he's actually been playing with his big brother Archie. That must mean he's seriously bored, because Archie is the most annoying being on this planet or any other planet and is more gross than a bin bag full of belly button cheese. They've been playing Spot the Pigeon to see who could count the most pigeons, which is the worst game anyone in history has ever come up with. I said I wasn't bored because lockdown is amazing and 4 awesome things had happened even just that day. And he said, you're talking total pig poop, Xander. And I said I wasn't, and he asked me what could possibly have happened that was so awesome, so I told him. 1. My little sister Lily decided to go to New Zealand in the morning because our cool Auntie Elsie lives there. She had 2 plans in case one didn't work. The first one was to fly, so we started to make a plane from 2 bits of wood for wings and Lily's old pram for the cockpit. But Mum said we couldn't nail the wings to the pram or use the leaf blower as an engine, so we had to switch to plan B. That involved digging through the earth to the other side. We dug as deep as our ankles, but then it was lunchtime, so we had to stop. We'll finish it tomorrow though. 2. Mum cut Dad's hair with his beard trimmer and an old pair of scissors from the kitchen drawer. It started okay, but then Mum made a big mistake with the setting and shaved a very bald line into the back of Dad's head. She said it didn't matter because no one could see him unless he walked into the room backwards, but Dad didn't agree. He also said the scissors smelled of bacon, so it was a bit of a disaster, but very funny to watch. Now he looks like he's been attacked by an evil hamster. 3. Dad and I made muffins because he found some flour in the back of the cupboard. It was 7 months out of date, but he said it would be fine. We made a special muffin for Mum with loads of chilli powder and salt in it. When Mum took a bite, her face went bright red and it looked like her head might actually explode, and Dad said something about revenge and laughed so hard he did a tiny squeaky bottom burp. Amazing! 4. We did a fashion show with our labradoodle, Dr. Stinkles. His best outfit was Lily's Irish dancing dress with a blonde curly wig and massive sunglasses. And that's the 4 things that happened on Sunday, which is why I am so not bored. Even if nothing happens today, I can always look at Dad's haircut for a laugh. Sorted! The end.
Hello, Mr. Neighbour. From my room, I can see all the way into your kitchen, and I thought you should know. Yesterday, I saw you dancing, and you were talking to yourself, but it's okay, I won't tell anyone. You can draw the curtains if you like. I won't mind. I asked Mum if she knew what your name is, but she didn't, even though we know the man who lives below you, with the gold tooth and the poodle, is called Steve. And right above you is Mohammed, who goes to my school and is the best at wheelies. Mum said I should send you a card, because you're probably old and lonely. Are you old and lonely? From Ruthie. P.S. I wore very thick gloves when I wrote this, which is why my handwriting's bad. Hello, Ruthie. Yes, I'm very old and lonely, so it's good you got in touch. Thank you for letting me know about my kitchen. That was very honest of you. I don't often dance, so I think you saw me fighting a wasp. I have a wasp's nest outside the window, and they keep getting in. Do you have any advice on killing wasps so that they stay dead? Since you mention it, I thought I should let you know that from my kitchen I can see some of the way into your kitchen too. Is that your brother who you pushed the other day? Didn't he cry a lot? I told my granddaughter Ailey about your letter. I think you'd like her. She collects woodlice and stones. I can see the stones you put on the windowsill. She said, maybe you're lonely too. I said I doubt it, but you never know. From your neighbour, Jacob. P.S. My gloves are only thin, but I wore 2 pairs because you'd been so thoughtful. Hello, Mr. Jacob. I saw you coming to post your letter. You look smaller outside your flat. I'm sorry about the stone I threw. I thought you might catch it, but I should have shouted first. Mum was very angry. But it is my favourite stone. I found it at Cardross on my 10th birthday. I've put it on your doorstep. I didn't see you on Thursday when we were all clapping. Were you scared the wasps would get you? Have you tried spraying them with vinegar and milk? I bet they hate that. From Ruthie. P.S. He pushed me first. Hi, Ruthie. I missed Thursday because Ailey called. Have you heard of Morse code? Ailey suggested, maybe if we learned it, every Thursday when we clap, you could send me a message. She said that way, maybe I wouldn't be so old and lonely. Only if you want to, though. Jacob. P.S. This stone is exceptional. It's okay that you threw it at me. Hello, Mr. Jacob. I learned it. I'm ready. I have a pan and a spoon, and I'll bang it extra loudly so you can hear. From Ruthie. P.S. I'll keep an eye out for wasps.
Hello, my name is Laura Guthrie. I'm an author of the Cranachan, and I'm a contributor to Cranachan's lockdown anthology, Stay at Home. And today I'm going to be reading the Limerick to-do list, which is part of that anthology. The Limerick to-do list. An 8th week at home. What to do? The garden's well worn, the films too. And as for the pens, they're dry yet again. And the shops are off limits. Boo-hoo. But here are some scissors and string, and sellotape, wonderful things. You could make a small box to be thrown from the docks, and the treasures could be gathered in. Those grown-ups look terribly clean, so much soap that it's almost obscene. A smidgen of colour, then wait for the holler of, "Who did this? My face is green!" Outside, we wear sensible clothes, but now we're in lockdown, who knows? We could run around bare without worry or care as the feeling of freedom just grows. But still, don't get too out of whack. One day we'll all have to go back to regular life with its trouble and strife. So savour the days you can fritter and laze as the earth takes a break from the beating it takes and all of us drive off the track.
Hello, I'm Rachel Plummer, and this is my poem, Superhero. When I grow up, I will become a superhero like my mum, who doesn't wear a lycra suit, or hold a ray gun primed to shoot, or swing from buildings on a web, or fly like bullets overhead, or drive a Batmobile and park it. My mum works in the supermarket. If there's no food, then no one eats. No hearty meals, no tasty treats. So heroes like my mum are working hard wherever hunger's lurking. Produce scanner, box unpacker, super empty shelf restacker. So thank her for your daily bread. She goes to work to keep you fed, and then comes home to hug me tight and read me stories every night. My mum, the hero, hunger mender, key worker, and smile defender.
Hello, my name is Callum Heitler, and today I'll be reading my short story, Picking the Right Pan. Dot's grandmother was short, round, and odd. Dot suspected she was a bit mad, or if not mad, then at least comfortably settled on the borders of madness. For example, Dot's grandmother was unimpressed with people who claimed they had seen fairies and goblins, but was equally unimpressed with people who claimed they didn't exist because no experiment had found them. Fairies and goblins were not fools, Dot's grandmother said, and knew what people like that could do if allowed to start poking and prodding at them like pebbles under a microscope. Fairies and goblins could read as well as anyone what Pavlo did to his poor dogs. Dot didn't know what she thought about fairies and goblins, though she agreed Pavlo wasn't someone she wanted to spend time with. She just knew she was lonely and missing her parents. Dot's grandmother lived in a cottage deep in the countryside, out in the middle of nowhere at all. There were hills with sheep on them, and a loch whose waters were blue during the day and black during the night. They had been visiting when Dot's parents, who were doctors, got a call from the hospital to come back right away. More phone calls were made, and after a long discussion, it was decided Dot would remain behind. She watched her parents drive away and found herself alone with nothing to do and no one to do it with. She was sitting on her bed waiting for the internet to work when her grandmother knocked on the door. She told Dot that people were clapping and banging pans for the doctors and nurses in the hospitals, and that they should do the same. Dot didn't see the point. No one lived anywhere nearby. They went into the kitchen. On the table were pans of various sizes. Go on, pick one. Dot picked up a small pan. It felt a bit flimsy. Behind her, Dot's grandmother coughed. Hesitating, Dot tried a larger pan, which was heavy and black and could have fried 7 eggs. Behind her, Dot's grandmother sniffed. Dot placed the heavy pan back on the table and picked up the plainest looking pan of all. It was the sort of pan her father used when making pancakes. Good choice, her grandmother said. Come on. They went outside. Embarrassed, Dot raised the pan above her head and started banging it with her spoon. The sound reverberated sadly, a lonely, hollow noise. Dot almost stopped then. But just as she lowered her arms, she heard the far-off sound of drumming rising above the hills. What was one sound became 2, then 3, then the sound of many pans banging and drumming, filling the valley. When it was over, they went inside, and Dot turned to her grandmother. Will it happen again next week? She whispered, trying to keep her heart steady. Maybe, or maybe not, or maybe something different, her grandmother smiled. Depends on which pan you pick, she said.
Hello, my name's Elizabeth Laird, and I'm going to read you my lockdown story, specially written for lockdown, called Forgetful Fergus. Granny McGinty was stuck in lockdown. Oh dear, she said, looking into her cupboard, I don't have any jam for my tea. Just then, Fergus from next door knocked on the window. Hello, Granny McGinty, he called through the glass. I'm going to the deli to get some baked beans. Is there anything you need yourself? Well, I could do with a jar of jam, please, Fergus. Right you are. So Fergus hopped on his bike and off he went to the corner shop. A jar of jam, a jar of jam, he kept saying to himself as he rode along, determined not to forget. Luckily, the shop was empty, except for Mr. Kowalski, who was standing behind the counter. "What can I do for you, Fergus?" asked Mr. Kowalski. "I've to get... Oh, dear me now, what was it?" said Fergus. "Yes, that's right, a slice of ham." "We don't have ham here, but there's bacon in the fridge if you'd like that." No, it wasn't ham after all. Let me see. Yes, tea from Assam," said Fergus. Mr. Kowalski shook his head. "I just have the ordinary tea, round bags or square bags. Take your pick." It might have been a tin of spam," said Fergus desperately. "Not much call for that these days," said Mr. Kowalski. "Are you sure it was spam she wanted?" "Or perhaps it was a leg of lamb," said Fergus, who was beginning to panic now. "You'd need to go to the butcher for that," Mr. Kowalski said kindly. "Are you feeling quite yourself, Fergus? No cough, no fever, nothing like that?" "I'm fine," said Fergus. "It's just that Granny McGinty asked me to get something for her and I can't remember what it was." Mr. Kowalski laughed. "Granny McGinty? It's a jar of jam she'll be wanting." "A jar of jam! That's right," beamed Fergus. "It's on the shelf behind you, and her favourite's the raspberry," said Mr. Kowalski. So Fergus bought the jam and hopped back onto his bicycle. But when he was halfway home, he thought, "I've forgotten what I was going to buy for myself. What was it now? A can of sardines? A bag of fresh greens? Or was it some nice tangerines? Mr. Kowalski will know. I'll just have to go back and ask him."
Daisy's mum. She sees the world as it begins. When the sun rises, the day breaks. Hearing the soft noises before anyone wakes. She puts on her outfit, pristine and clean. She stretches and yawns, looking at me. In bed, dreaming of days gone and been, spent playing with friends I no longer see. She buzzes away like a bee, leaving behind her sweet honey smell. It lingers and comforts me. Outside she goes to help those unwell. I wait for her deep into the night, when she creeps in and takes off her mask. "I miss you," I say. With heavy eyes, a tired smile, she replies, "It's only for a little while." "You're my superhero," I whisper, but she smiles. There's others with different powers, voices that heal, voices that say, "You rest, my wee flowers, you'll be okay." I want to help fight the virus too, a dark, endless cloud trying to catch you when you run. But the most powerful thing she says I can do is to stay at home safe and sound. Holding her hand, I sleep like a daisy feeding from the sun.
Hello, my name is Maren Glover, and this is my poem, Rainbows. Red is for rosy apples and warm winter gloves, for carers working everywhere with hearts full of love. Orange is for oranges, bright as the rising sun, for teachers making videos so learning can be fun. Yellow is for buttercups, bananas and busy bees, for bin lorries passing by and budgies eating cheese. Green is for gardens and finches in the hedge, for farmers and food workers bringing healthy veg. Blue is for rivers and the tears of our goodbyes, for doctors, nurses, cleaners, and all angels in disguise. Indigo is for evenings and bedtime stories told, with families who treasure us and teddies to hold. Violet is for dreaming from the cloud boat of your bed, going on great adventures in the worlds inside your head. Rainbows of bright colours, held together in one rope. Light in stormy weather, rainbows are for hope.
Hello, I'm Larry Dawn and I'm going to read you my story Finding Fairies from the Stay at Home anthology. Lockdown was the perfect opportunity to find the fairies at the bottom of our garden. When I was little, I believed there were fairies living in the weedy flower bed at the edge of our small square of patchy grass, and Granny told me stories about girls in the olden days who'd taken photos of fairies in their garden. So, at the start of lockdown, I sat at the bottom of the garden every day, aiming my phone at the weeds, hoping to find fairies. While I waited, I remembered the year of the fairies, the year I started primary 1, before Dad changed his hours, when Granny looked after me every day after school. Granny and I never saw fairies, but we saw evidence of fairies. Acorn teacups. There aren't any oak trees near our house, so the acorns were proof of fairy tea parties. Tiny felt hats in bright petal colours: yellow, proving we had dandelion fairies; blue, confirming we had bluebell fairies. And on my 5th birthday, we found a tiny red book with tiny brown writing on tiny cream pages. Granny read me the story about fairy children defeating monstrous slugs and vicious hedgehogs. I reread the book every year. I wanted to meet those adventurous fairies. So, for days, I sat staring at the weeds. As I sat, I realised that since Granny stopped babysitting regularly, I hadn't found any little cups or hats or books. Eventually, I stopped watching and started searching. I drew a chart of the weed bed and examined every square methodically, patting the earth and checking each stem, leaf and branch. I found slugs, spiders, ants and beetles, but no fairies. No fairy homes, no fairy tea parties, no evidence of fairies at all. I ran to my room, grabbed the shoebox I'd painted to look like a wooden chest and tipped out my fairy treasure. Tiny hats. I noticed the suspiciously large stitches holding them together. Acorn teacups. I remember the oak tree in the park behind Granny's flat. The wonderful little book with the tiny writing. I got down the Viking myth book Granny gave me for my 9th birthday with happy birthday written inside. I compared the writing. The letters were different sizes, but the shapes were very similar. I dropped the tiny book on the bed. I wasn't sure how I felt. Betrayed, angry, disappointed, but also a wee bit impressed. The hedgehog ambush was wonderfully action-packed. The fight scene with the giant slug was brilliantly gross. Maybe I don't have fairies at the bottom of my garden, but I do have a super sneaky storytelling, magic-making Granny instead. This year, I can't whisper in Granny's ear that I know her secret. So, I'm sitting by the weeds, imagining adventures, then writing them in a tiny notebook. Because it's Granny's birthday soon, and I'm going to post her a book of fairy tales set at the bottom of the garden. I wonder if any of you found fairies during lockdown. So I hope you all stay well and keep loving stories.
Hi there, I'm Anne-Marie Allen, and this is a story about making a friend during lockdown. It's called Mouse. The sun disappeared ahint the clouds, and a breeze sprang up from nowhere. Ella shivered and reached for the railing to pull herself up. The bottom step was too cold to sit on any longer. It was time to go inside. She hesitated, awkwardly balanced between sitting and standing, when she saw the leaves tremble at the bottom of the hedge. A tiny creature crept out. A mouse with black button eyes, great big ears, and a pair of feet that looked too big for its body. Hardly daring to breathe, Ella lowered herself back on the step. The mouse stared up at her, whiskers twitching, wee paws folded across its furry belly. She'd never seen him before, but maybe that was because she'd been too busy to notice. Now she was home almost all the time. There were hardly any cars or passers-by, and nobody came tramping up and down the steps to the front door. This definitely wasn't his first visit, thought Ella, watching him run straight for the bird table to snatch up the seeds off the ground and stuff them into his mouth. Cheeks bulging, he turned and looked at her, then scurried back to the hedge. A quick flick of his tail, and he was gone. "Bye, mouse," whispered Ella. "I'll see you again tomorrow."
Hi, my name is Joan Lennon, and my story is called On the Roof. Rob was on the roof again. These days, Rob's mum had plenty to worry about, and he did his best to help by acting cheerful till his face ached. So every chance he got, he would wriggle through the skylight, slide down the slates, and lean back against the chimney. On the roof, Rob's face didn't have to look like anything it didn't want to. He hugged his knees and he heaved a sad sigh. Then he nearly jumped out of his skin when somebody said, "Hello?" Rob eased around the chimney and found himself staring into a pair of anxious eyes. The strange blobbly shape surrounding the eyes turned with a squeal into a seagull, then a small lilac bush, and then an extra chimney that said, "You can't see me." "I can, you know," said Rob. His heart was beating fast. "Are you an alien?" The extra chimney turned back into a blob and smiled nervously. "I'm a Gerblite from Gerbil. You know, 2 galaxies over and down a bit. I was just passing through, but there was this glitch with my engine. My ship's in amongst your satellites while it self-repairs. There are so many things orbiting up there, I figured nobody would notice one more." "Probably not." Inside his head, Rob was crowing, "There's an alien on my roof." "Meantime, I thought I'd come down just to have a look. We're not really supposed to, but I couldn't resist. And I thought, up here, no one would see me. But now we've met. Tell me about your world. Tell me everything." So Rob started to tell about the virus and the lockdown and not meeting up with friends and his mum working from her bedroom and him doing school online in the kitchen. When he'd run out of things to say, the alien looked at him with its big eyes and asked, "But what about the other stuff?" "What other stuff?" "The other stuff I saw before I came down here. The blue bits and the green bits and the white bits. Oh, and there were orangey bits." So Rob started to tell about oceans and forests and ice caps and deserts, and the alien's eyes got all shiny, and Rob's did too. And then they got on to books and movies, and the alien had 1,000 questions, and then, Rob? It was his mum calling. When she stuck her head out of the skylight, there was only Rob to be seen. Sorry, that meeting took forever, but I'm finally done, she said. Ready for a walk? Let's go get ourselves some nature. Sure. Rob scrambled up the slates to the skylight. At the last moment he paused and looked back. The alien's squodgy little face was peeping around the corner of the chimney. Will you be back? It whispered. Yes, said Rob. Will you be here? Yes, said the alien. And Rob's face had no problem with wearing a smile.
Hello everyone, my name is Noemi Kabasu, and I would like to read a wee story called Songbird. To help me, I have Little Blue Tit, and I also have a little robin. And these two friends have a good old conversation, so I hope you like it. Songbird. It's an unseasonably warm evening at the far end of two communal gardens in Glasgow.
Strange times. Aye, the folk at batch 10 are always in masks, even on the creaky trample bouncer. D, just like the folk at batch 14 and 8 and 12. That's if they leave the nests at all. They're all cooped out by the telly, keeking fancy nature films.
That's because the High Regent told them to stay at home. Eh? Where you been? They're trying to halt the germ. That's all very well, but have you seen them wash the bird feeders? No. True enough. Ooh, earthworm. Och, missed. Anyway, the germ's a cracker. It's got the engines all hypnotised. And the air's brand new now. Aye, I've been joining the Sunset Chorus. Name her choking. What a treat. The human songs are nicer too. Nae shouty, more gentle. So they are. Batch 5 plays the Flower of Scotland on the horn at dawn. I quite like it, but the others aren't appreciating the early starts. Dee. Did I tell ye? One of them did a right fine drawing of me too. Oh, aye? Aye. I puffed myself up and sat still as a wink. And then there I was, in his book. My yellow was a bit green. Still, it was braw. Number 4 has always been the sort to look out the windy, but it's nice to see the others dusting off their crayons too. We'll be grinning from the Christmas cards. Aye, right. Anyway, you're more fashionable in the summer. Oh, look. Dee. I see her. I wish the others had a voice like hers. Watch. They're peeping from their nests. They love her songs too. Did she sing before the masks? No, she was always at her work. I hope she keeps singing forever. What's this song? Is she asking folk to feed us? Aye, better and better. No, hold your wished and listen.
Hello, my name is Joan Haig and I'm lucky enough to have been the editor for the Stay at Home collection. I'm going to read to you my own poem from the collection, which is called Fossil Hunting, and it's a sonnet. We skirt the heather, scale the mossy crag, reaching the barren gully at high noon. I dig for sweets and apples in Dad's bag. We swig from flasks, then scour the old lagoon. A dried up basin now, but once a sea of sponges, mollusks, starfish, coral reef. I scan the dull, time-shattered, sun-baked scree. And there, a shell shape moulded in relief on red and sandy stone. Look what I've found! Dad shows me through his magnifying glass its contoured whorl, the ridges circling round. We wrap it in old news. I'll tell my class when school restarts about the ancient rocks that Dad and I raked up on daily walks.
Today I'm going to read to you my story called A Gorilla on an Exercise Bike. Krishna spent a great deal of time these days gazing out of the window at the tenement opposite. The West End streets were quiet, no traffic, no pedestrians apart from the dog walker who always wore red. Red shoes, red corduroy trousers, red jacket, red shirt, red beret. This wasn't because lockdown had sent him crazy. The man in red had always worn red for as long as Krishna could remember. Krishna dreamed of being allowed out to see his friends again, playing football, swimming in the local swimming baths, ice cream at Nardini's. He even missed curling up on the sofa with a dog-eared book at Hill End Library, where June, the librarian, kept an eye on all the kids from the after-school club. The tenement opposite was all he had these days. He knew the routine of his neighbours across the street like the back of his hand. Every window had a different story to tell. There was the family on the first floor with the sunny-haired twins and the baby in the high chair banging its spoon on its tray. There was the dark-haired lady who flung her windows open at 6 o'clock every evening and burst into song. There was the woman who sat at her computer keyboard all day, clicking away. There was the dog in the hand-knitted stripy jumper who sat on a table in the only patch of sunlight, soaking up the warmth. He was one of those shivery, naked-looking dogs with hardly any fur, so Krishna could understand his need for the jumper and its search for warmth. But then there was the strangest thing of all. On the third floor, directly opposite Krishna's flat, was the gorilla on an exercise bike. "Mum, Mum! What is it?" "It's the gorilla again, the one I told you about." "Don't be ridiculous, Krishna. What have I told you about making things up?" The gorilla put on a pair of headphones and began to pedal. "Mum, Mum! The gorilla's got headphones on and he's listening to music." "Don't be ridiculous, Krishna. You're making it up. There is no gorilla." Eventually, Mum came to the window to water the tired-looking pot plant. By this time, the gorilla had completed his daily exercise, so he draped a towel around his shoulders, hefted himself off the exercise bike, and wiped his hairy forehead. Then, noticing Krishna and his mum up at the window, he waved at them. "I told you." Mum's face closed over with the stress of all she was dealing with. "Tidy your room, Krishna. It's an awful mess and it's driving me crazy." Krishna's face fell, and he wondered if he was the only one who ever saw the gorilla. "I suppose we are living in very strange times," she sighed, but that was the only concession she would ever make.
Hello, I'm Miranda Moore, and this is my reverse poem, A World Unlocked, from the Stay at Home anthology. A World Unlocked. It was better before, so don't tell me this new world shoots grow fresh and keen when lungs and land can breathe. For in truth, we're here to win, and it's false to claim soil and soul are more at peace. I know life is a race. Nothing can persuade me birdsong matters, because no matter what, we must keep pushing. Don't tell me while we stand rooted, this vital ground is sown with seeds of vigour. For as I gaze out, I consider, wasn't our way of life right? Now I'm going to read it from bottom to top. A World Unlocked. This is the reverse version. Wasn't our way of life right? For as I gaze out,
I consider this vital ground is sown with seeds of vigour while we stand rooted. Don't tell me we must keep pushing, because no matter what, birdsong matters. Nothing can persuade me life is a race. I know soil and soul are more at peace, and it's false to claim we're here to win. For in truth, when lungs and land can breathe, this new world shoots grow fresh and keen. So don't tell me it was better before.
Stepping Out by Alistair Chisholm. I remember waiting. I was in a room filled with stark white light, and the humans were building me carefully, piece by piece. They called me Voyager, and I was a space probe, an explorer. That sounded good. I wanted to explore. I wanted to leap into space and never stop. I was impatient. I had thrusters and sensors. I wanted to go everywhere. I wanted to see everything. Not yet, they told me. Soon. I waited. They attached more pieces, tested and corrected. The doors stayed closed. A tiny window above me showed a scrap of sky, and the midnight stars called to me. Not yet. Why not? The conditions must be right, they said. Not yet. Until one day, finally, the doors opened and I stepped outside. I launched inside a huge rocket, feeling the crush of acceleration as I blasted into the sky, into orbit, into space. I was free. It was cold, but my fuel cells would give me heat and energy for years. I stretched out my arms, deployed my sensors. I saw light, particles, radio waves, the hum of magnetic forces. I saw everything. I flew towards Jupiter and its glowing bright red spot, recording and reporting. I discovered new moons and electromagnetic fields and unexpected dust rings. I watched volcanoes erupting into space from the moon of Io. I saw Europa's frozen ocean. And then, using Jupiter as a slingshot, I hurtled on, past Saturn and its rings and moons, Prometheus and Pandora, hazy Titan, and beyond. Onwards, outwards, at 30,000 miles an hour, overtaking planets and asteroids. I photographed the worlds behind me as I went, and Earth was just a tiny white-blue speck. I travelled for decades, further than any human thing had ever gone. Space changed. Atomic particles fizzed and frothed around me as I neared the edge of the heliosphere, where the sun's stellar winds hit the background hum of the universe. I ploughed on, through the storm, onwards, and space changed again. And I was out. Interstellar, galaxy traveller, and beyond. I'm tired now. It's been 40 years since I set off, and my fuel is almost gone. I use a little more to keep talking to Earth for as long as I can. I am 13 billion miles from home. Every signal is faint and takes a day to arrive, and soon my radio will fail. I keep going. I carry a golden record filled with the voices and music from Earth. I am heading towards a star, Jalise 445. It will take 40,000 years to get there. I am not afraid. And I wonder, what has happened on that tiny white-blue speck of Earth since I've been gone? What are the people doing now? Are they explorers, like me? Perhaps not yet. Perhaps they are having to wait, as I waited. Perhaps they're impatient. But soon, one day, they will open their doors, and they will step outside and launch. And when they do, they'll see everything.